Hey everyone, how's it going? Matt here, and I just want to make a quick video talking about the premiere of HBO's Westworld, which I think I can safely say is one of my new favorite TV shows of all time, even after just one episode. The writer of this episode and the director, Jonathan Nolan, he did one of my favorite TV shows, which was Person of Interest, and he's also Christopher Nolan's brother, and he helped write the Dark Knight, Batman movies, and things along those lines. So he's obviously a very talented writer, but he also has this very keen interest in artificial intelligence, as you can see from Person of Interest, and what consciousness really means, what it means to be a human. And I think Westworld is the perfect backdrop for a writer with his sensibilities to use in order to explore these kinds of topics. So him and his wife basically co-created, produced, wrote this series, and it's a very expensive series for HBO. It's like $100 million, which I think it's up there with their miniseries of Rome in terms of production value and stuff like that. The series is also kind of executive produced by J.J. Abrams, which some people see as a negative. I personally think it's a positive. I like J.J. Abrams. The good news is that Damon Lindelof has nothing to do with this show, so you can kind of rest assured that it's not going to have the problems that a typical Damon Lindelof written thing might have. Shows such as Lost, Cowboys and Aliens, The Leftovers, things like that. We're not going to get that from this series. And from what I saw from the premiere, we're going to get a lot of good stuff. One of the things I found most interesting about this show was that I read an interview with Jonathan Nolan where he said that him and his wife played a lot of video games when they were kind of planning out the world of this series. And what was most interesting was that they really kind of paid a lot of attention to the Grand Theft Auto games, in the sense that you have this great big open world, and you have all these NPCs, non-player characters, who kind of go through, who exist in this world, and that the player interacts with. And they basically took a look at how people play Grand Theft Auto and translated that into how real people would interact in a theme park like Westworld. And it's very interesting because when you're playing a video game like Grand Theft Auto, you have no compunction with, grabbing someone, throwing them out of a car, stealing their car, crashing into stuff as you're driving around, beating up prostitutes to take their money, shooting umpteen billion police officers in the most violent way possible. And so, when you translate how we treat non-player characters in video games into a real-world theme park, where you're allowed to, and also to some extent encouraged to, live out your darkest fantasies, in the sense that you're going to be having lots of sex, you're going to be killing stuff, just basically doing all the stuff you can't do in real life. It's a very interesting dynamic, and the thing that really sets the Westworld show on a different level than most other things is the fact that it's being told from the point of view of the robots, of the non-player characters, which I thought was a very interesting take. Because if you look at the original movie that it's based off of, the humans were the main characters in that. And it's kind of like a Terminator situation where you have this robot that's kind of like systematically hunting them down. And the TV show flips that around and makes it so that, it's the humans who are the bad guys. And we're meant to kind of sympathize with the robots and their plight. And one of the cool things about that is that it leaves a lot of room for thematic growth, where you can explore a lot of different really interesting science fiction concepts with that kind of subject matter. So I'm really excited to see where this is going. But on top of the kind of overall themes that the show explores, it's really well made. The music for this show was ridiculously good. I'm not normally one to pay attention to music when I'm watching a TV show or whatever, but they took like contemporary like rock songs and made them kind of like old-timey Western piano themes that like when you're playing them you're like, I know this song. And when you realize what song it is, you get happy because you're just like, oh man, like that's a great use of that song. Like for instance, during a big shootout towards the end of the show, the theme that's playing is the Rolling Stones' "Paint It Black," but it's done in such a subtle kind of melodic piano-y way. It feels like it fits in this old Western kind of themed area. It's really slick. And it's not something that you'd normally expect from a TV show like this, but it's done so well that it just enhances everything that's going on when you hear this music. The acting in this show is beyond amazing. There's obviously a lot of talented actors that they cast. Anthony Hopkins being probably the biggest name that most people would recognize. But the performances from the character actors, like I don't know the actor's name, but the actor who played the main girl's father, who kind of goes on the fritz, was simply incredible. Like his scene with Anthony Hopkins towards the end there, where he's going through a bunch of different characters within the span of like a couple seconds, that was amazing. Like as someone who's worked with actors and directed stuff before and things along those lines, the level of acting skill that was on display during that scene was just mind-blowing. Like that, I'm gonna have to look up who that guy is because he's one to watch. He was really, really good. But all the acting in this show was good. Like every single character, you knew exactly who they were, where they were coming from. In a way, it kind of reminds me of Dollhouse, that Joss Whedon show, where you have the people who can be programmed to be different people. And that's essentially kind of like the same deal because these robots are slowly becoming self-aware, in a sense. And they've been programmed to be so many different people that they've still got all these personalities kind of in their databanks. So they flare up from time to time. And I think we're going to see the repercussions of that. But it also kind of leaves the door open to explore really interesting things where characters who are one way at the beginning of the series can suddenly change and be something completely different towards the end. And the possibilities are just like really exciting for me. So the writing, the directing, the design, the forethought that went into this series in conjunction with the acting and the music was just beautiful. And I can't say enough of good things about this show. And I'm really looking forward to seeing where it's going. Because, like we've all heard the stories about how it had production troubles. It had to shut down like midway through the season just to kind of catch up with the writing because they were writing as they were shooting. And you can do that with normal like episodic network TV shows. But when it comes to something like HBO where you're doing basically a 13-hour movie or however long the season is, you kind of have to tackle it from a different perspective, especially when you're doing such an ambitious TV series. And so Jonathan Nolan basically said they had to take a hiatus in order to finish writing the show so that they could then produce the rest of it. And, a lot of people were kind of, calling doom and gloom when that happened. But judging from the quality of the first episode, if all the other episodes are anywhere near the quality of the premiere, I'm going to be extremely happy because this was one great episode of TV. Now, I wouldn't put it quite on the same level as Game of Thrones because they are two very different TV shows. But I would say that this is something that is kind of on the level of a show like The Wire, which is one of the greatest TV shows ever made, in my opinion. Just in the sense that it's kind of slow and it's like character based and there's like a lot of themes and ideas that go behind it and the writing is really, really solid and smart. But it's also got the kind of like violence and nudity stuff that Game of Thrones fans kind of really enjoy. And it's one of the reasons why, you get HBO so you can see like mature subjects and things like that explored. But I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about the first Westworld. I'm really excited about it. I'll probably start digging into some of the narrative stuff and other videos that I plan to make somewhere down the road. But it's hard to pick out things to critique in shows that are good and that you like, because there's only so many ways you can say, like, yeah, that was good, they did a good job there. It's much easier to point out flaws and stuff like that, and I'm sure the show will have its fair share of flaws, just like Person of Interest did, just like Game of Thrones does. But so far, from what I'm seeing in the first episode, they're probably going to be few and far in between, because the quality is really, really high in this series. All right, guys, so let me know what you thought about Westworld. Love to hear your take on it, where you think it's going, the stuff that you want to see explored more in the show, and I will catch you all later.